Mamy jeszcze trochę więcej materiału z tego artefakta. Zerkniemy, co tu jest. To jest jakiś stream, tylko oczywiście w jakości ziemniaka. A nie, przepraszam, to nie jest stream, to jest shot. No, super dźwięk. Podgłoszę to trochę, żeby było głośniej, żeby było coś słychać. Dobra, dźwięk chyba niepotrzebny, bo nie odnosi się do tego. Tutaj jest pokazana podpisana karta. Ale nie mam dlatego pojęcia, co to znaczy. I o co w tym chodzi. W każdym razie można podpisywać karty. Ja usiadłem i umiałem w KS-a, a tutaj to nie wiem, czy bym tak umiał. Jasiu, wierzę w ciebie, dasz radę. Mądry chłopak jesteś, ty się nauczysz. Tu mamy ten cały bullshit z gry online. Fabuła. Okay. Korzysta z uniwersum wykreowanego na potrzeby gry Dota, w którym liczne cywilizacje są skupione wokół specjalnych kamieni pozwalających im na korzystanie z magii, nawet skrzeszenie zmarłych. Jednak historia nie pełni tutaj żadnej istotnej funkcji, będąc jedynie tyłem fabularnym dla poszczególnych postaci lub przedmiotów. Ble. Dobra, to jest tylko po to, że jest ocena słaba. Ale w sumie to nie wiem, po co tutaj jest. Być może mi się tylko tak wydaje, ale każda gra karciana połączona z czymkolwiek nie odnosi takiego sukcesu jak sama czysta gra karciana. Nie jestem pewny, czy do każdego będzie przemawiała ta gra. Patrz, Carson. Trochę szkoda, że tak mało ludzi się artefaktem zainteresowało, bo zapowiada się chyba najbardziej oryginalna karcianka ostatnich lat. Już nie mówię o tym, że Valve pokusiło się o wprowadzenie szczególiku znanego z autentycznego TCG, czyli handlu kartami. Oczywiście za prawdziwe pieniądze. Pytanie tylko, jak 3 pola wpłyną na balans i przejrzystość rozgrywki. Pomysł ze zdobywaniem złota póki co wydaje mi się kompletnie nietrafiony. Wygrywający dostaje dodatkowe bonusy. No nie handel kartami, jakoś nie widzi mi się wydawanie na karciankę, która może w każdej chwili zniknąć z jakichś astronomicznych kwot. A przecież talie w takim MTG zaczynają się od $50. Tak, i to jest równoznaczne z tym, że w tej grze też będą 50. Dobra. Nie ma sensu tego czytać. How to play Valve Artifacts. Ars Technica.
From Ars Technica. Hey everybody, this is Sam Muskowicz from Ars Technica, here with an exclusive look at Artifact.
Mati obraża gry online. No hobbystyczne. Coś a la premium to jest z podpisami. No idea. Kuber lepiej wyjaśnił. Wydaje mi się, że Shilin bardziej mówił o długości rozgrywki, jeden z powodów, dla których Puk przegrał z Fortnite'em. Ale goście, znaczy ja rozumiem, że ta gra trwa 20 minut. Nie to. Ja rozumiem, że ta gra trwała 20 minut, ale w to się nie gra 20 minut. Zwróćcie uwagę, że ten chłop, którego widzimy, to większość czasu poświęca na, nie wiem, machanie kursorem po planszy. Podejrzewam, że spokojnie można by tą rozgrywkę skrócić do 1/3 tego, co tutaj widzimy. Patrząc na to, co robią te karty i na siłę tych kart, to strzelam, że średnia długość tej gry to jest 6 tur. Taki strzał, nie jakoś super nie będę tego jakoś super argumentował, ale moim zdaniem to na pewno nie trwa 20 minut, a tutaj to koleś po prostu latał po tych kartach i je pokazywał zamiast grać. Więc wydaje mi się, że długość rozgrywki będzie podobna do Hearthstone'a. Chyba że jesteście typem z tego Komputer Świata i mówicie: o, 40 życia! O Boże! Tyle życia! To w porównaniu do Hearthstone'a gra będzie o 33% dłuższa. Daj na napisy jak są. A co my oglądamy to?
The next major video game from legendary developer Valve Software. You're about to see the game's first ever demo version, which is being revealed at this weekend's PAX West conference. Lucky for us, we were invited to a sneak preview ahead of the game's formal November 28th launch on Windows, Mac, and Linux, with a smartphone version coming sometime in 2019. Artifact is a digital trading card game, or TCG, modeled after popular games like Magic the Gathering. Now, before you start convulsing in anger that this isn't Half-Life 3 or some other first-person game,
muszą być te napisy. Bo jak są napisy, to na film patrzę na napisy. Zawsze mnie to irytuje.
I insist that there's something interesting here, particularly because Magic's creator, Richard Garfield, joined Valve to work on this game. If you're going to take on a game as big as Magic, we reckon, you might as well get Mr. Magic to help himself. And unsurprisingly, Garfield's reputation for making
Nie chcę oczywiście się czepiać czy coś, ale widać, że nie jedną grę karcianą ziomek grał.
Math-filled games is strong with this one, so buckle up. There's a lot to cover here. Artifact takes place in the Dota 2 universe, full of Valve's familiar fantasy creatures and a few key similarities to Dota's gameplay. Like in Magic, every match of Artifact is one-on-one. But unlike Magic, this game hinges on each player assembling a team of 5 heroes. These are the first cards you play in a match, and you'll build a whole deck of cards based on your hero's strength, weaknesses, and colors. All 4 of the game's colors appear in this video: blue, black,
Czarny i niebieski, moje kolory. Tym będę grał.
green, and red. And their card types each emphasize different types of strategy. Ooh, that is a big table. Richard Garfield says he wanted to enable crazier card gameplay with his first ever digital card game, so he went for 3 lanes of cards, which is a lot like Dota 2, whose combat is also split into 3 lanes. In Artifact's case, 3 of your 5 hero cards are randomly dropped on the table at a match's start.
Mówiłem, że losowo.
Creep cards, which are just like the weaker grunt characters from Dota 2. The object of the game is to use your hero cards and a variety of spell and equipment cards to cause damage and tear down 2 of your opponent's towers before they do the same to you. Whatever other chaos happens does not matter in the end. The towers are the key. Notice here that each lane starts with the number 40. That's each tower's starting health as hit points. When either player's first tower goes down to 0 points, it is replaced with an additional stronger tower, and that one gets 80 hit points. This is one of Artifact's most interesting wrinkles. What should an attacker do at this point? Switch gears and attack a weaker tower to win the game? Or focus on this new stronger tower? There's a strategic angle either way, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, which is easy to do in a game with this many moving parts. So let's go back to the beginning. After these hero and creep cards randomly land on the table, each player gets 5 spell cards in their hand. You need 2 things to play a spell card in Artifact. First, you have to spend a currency known as mana points, much like in Magic the Gathering. Each spell's cost appears in the card's top left corner. And see that 3/3 down at the bottom? That fraction tells you how much mana you currently have, along with your maximum mana. Just to be clear, each lane gets its own mana pool, which refills every round, and this number ticks up 1 point every round in every lane. Now, in addition, you also need a hero card in that lane. It must be alive, and its color must match the spell. Blue spells need a blue hero to be cast, green spells need a green hero, and so on. Some spells have an immediate effect in your current lane, either to yourself or to your foe. Others include an any lane designation, which does something interesting. It lets you spend one lane's mana on another lane. During my tests, Garfield often recommended that I take advantage of this any lane quirk to bail on one lane in favor of playing cards on another. This is very similar to how an average game of Dota 2 plays out, but I've never really seen a card game use this mechanic in this way. Remember, each player started this match with 3 hero cards on the table, but we had 5 cards per team in that opening splash screen. Where are the others? Well, look at that box in the top left, and you'll see small icons for remaining heroes. A check mark means that hero will return in the very next round, and you get to pick exactly where it goes at that time. A -1 means you have an extra round to wait to put that card on the table. -2 means an extra 2 rounds of waiting, and so on. Whenever a hero card is destroyed, it gets sent to the same waiting pool with a -1 timer. Remember, if you ever have a lane completely cleared of heroes, you can't cast any spells in that lane. And this can hurt. Whenever any hero or creep card is destroyed, that gives the attacker some gold, which you can spend between rounds in an item shop interface for more cards. Unlike spells, these item cards do not require mana, and their effects range from instant actions, like drawing a card, to permanent boosts, like adding stats to a hero card. If you don't buy these cards when they appear, they get shuffled back into your deck, which can make them hard to get back. The only exception is if you pay 1 gold to hold whatever's in the secret shop slot. You'll want to do this to shore up some more gold so you can eventually afford that awesome expensive card you really want. Each hero has 3 stats: attack, health, and bounty. The first 2 are basic enough. Subtract the attack number from the health number to determine a card's damage. That bounty number is the amount of gold your hero coughs up should it die. Those stats all fluctuate as you add boosts and equipment from the item shop, which fill the rest of the card's open slots. And yes, that bounty gets bigger as your card becomes more valuable.
Aha, czyli im bardziej sobie dopakujemy postać, tym ona więcej jest ten Więcej daje golda, jak umrze.
Each hero also
Ale randomowe umieszczenie bohaterów na początku nie ma znaczenia, bo sam rozstają być ich na pustych, identycznych liniach. No, masz rację, w 100%.
gets its own signature spell card, which is randomly dealt into your deck. These have serious impact. Its own signatures that bounty gets bigger as your card becomes more valuable. Each hero also gets its own signature spell card, which is
A, właśnie, to są te umiejętności bohaterów.
randomly dealt into your deck. These have serious impact and even spell
Czekaj,
card, which is randomly dealt into your deck. These have serious impact, and even better, they typically require low mana to use. Many heroes come with special spells they can activate with a cooldown, kind of like the superpowers in Dota 2 matches. For example, here's one that can be activated once every 4 turns to let players draw an extra spell card. You can use spell cards to spawn more and stronger creeps on a lane, and these sometimes come with their own perks. This one, for example, will clone itself on the battlefield whenever it hits a tower. It's like something out of a Tolkien Orc Raid nightmare. From here, as mana counts get higher and heroes equip more armor and perks, each lane grows more intense and complex. In some cases, heroes have special effects that trigger on a regular basis. In others, the mana and items you spend in previous rounds result in increasingly powerful cannons and attacks that pester a given lane's heroes and creeps over and over. Unlike Magic, Artifact has no card limits. Keep as many cards in your hand as you want, lay as many cards in a single lane as you want, and make a personal deck with
Engine Artifacta jest lepszy. Wytrzymuje więcej niż 10 kart w ręce.
however many cards you desire.
Musiałem.
It's not really a good idea to have a bloated deck, but if you want to, go right ahead. In my demos, I wound up with so many cards in my hand that I had to use a mouse's scroll wheel just to peruse them all. From there, really, it's all about the cards. Like Magic before it, Artifact is basically a rules framework that is meant to be stretched to its limits by each player's individual card deck. The cards we have seen thus far are pretty Magic-like, with the usual suspects. Damage dealers, conditional buffs, reactions, bonuses based on where a card is placed, and so on. We have to wait until late November to see the game's first wave.
Wydaje mi się też, że... Może mi się wydaje i może to jest błędne, co mówię, ale tu jest więcej RNG z racji tego losowego rozstawienia heroesów, tych creepów, tych kurwa ścieżek i tak dalej, ale jest mniej losowości, jeżeli chodzi o draw. Mam wrażenie, że tutaj o wiele... że rozdanie nie ma aż takiego znaczenia, bo dobieracie tylko spele. Tych speli chyba są po 3 w deku i macie ograniczoną ilość tych kart. Więc o wiele łatwiej jest dobrać coś, co jest potrzebne, co macie w talii, niż w Hearthstone'ie. Więc to może, powiedzmy, że skracać tą ilość RNG. Że z jednej strony jest więcej RNG przez losowy układ tych wszystkich tam pierdół, ale z drugiej strony dobieranie kart jest mniej losowe.
Of cards, which will almost certainly be followed in the months and years to come with more options. Garfield in particular
kompensować, czy rekompensować.
Break the game's rules. For example, we got a preview of a red hero card that can shut down all spellcasting in a given round. And that's pretty huge for a game whose cards are all called spells. That's the point of Artifact, Garfield says, that cards can change the rules of engagement at a moment's notice, which is supposed to keep this kind of game
Przecież łamanie zasad gry kojarzy mi się z Hearthstone'em dosyć mocno ostatnio.
for a long time. But we're still waiting to see how some major parts of Artifact work, like how you make decks, how you buy and trade new cards on the Steam marketplace.
Dobrze gada, dobrze gada.
Friends and online rivals. Those questions will have to wait until November 28th to get answers. But for now, I'll say this. I've had some time to simmer on Artifact's unique card battling ideas for a while now. Especially its way it splits everything into multiple lanes and all of these weird ways that numbers never quite add up. There's always an imbalance wherever you go. Even this whole system of having to attack an even stronger tower at the end. It's creative stuff, and I'm itching to try it out again, so that's a really good sign.
Not bad. Dobra, co mamy dalej? To jest to samo, nie?
Hey
to jest
everybody,
jakiś
Sam
wywiad.
Moscovich here from Ars Technica, hanging out at Valve Software in Bellevue, Washington. I'm here to play Artifact. It's the new digital card game that's based off of the popular Dota 2 series. It's coming out later this year, but right now people are getting to play it at PAX West in Seattle, Washington. But we got to come by a week early, test it out, and talk to the guy who created it, Richard Garfield. You may have heard of him from a little game called Magic the Gathering.
Well, Artifact is an electronic trading card game. You assemble a deck, and you're competing to be the first to tear down 2 of 3 of your opponent's towers. Or if you tear down the same one twice, that's okay. Some of the things which make it distinctive from other electronic trading card games are that you can have any number of creatures in play at the same time. You can have any number of cards in your hand. You're dealing with 3 arenas at the same time, so there's sort of the sense not only of tactics, but of strategy. My connection with Valve is Chris Green, who used to worked on the online Magic. And when he went to Valve, I kept in contact with him, and I always followed what they were working on. I'm a big fan of TF2, and I would occasionally come to him and pitch him some game ideas.
Co znaczy boing? Znaczy to słowo? W sensie wygwizda? Coś w tym stylu? Okay.
I think the reaction was in a bunch of ways a good thing. We knew that because of the kind of game that we were making, that there would be a reaction from a broader set of fans who expect us to make a shooter or expect us to make, some other kind of product. That, hey, why are you making this?
The electronic card games that had been made to that point much simpler than paper card games, and that seemed like a shame because you've got this resource, the computer, which could handle much more complicated things than a tabletop. And so I had some mechanical ideas for how to keep the game flowing, because there are these issues, for instance, with Magic. When you make Magic into an electronic card game, there's a lot of things which don't work as well electronically as they do over a tabletop. You constantly have to be on the alert for what your opponent's going to do, so you can interrupt the action at any time. And so mechanical things like that had been, when thinking about them in other products, it had made the games become simpler, I think, than a lot of the game players were looking for. And so the game I was presenting was one where, let's take the bounds away. Let's make it so you can have any number of creatures out. You could hold any number of cards in your hand. Let's get a timing sequence so that you can feel like you're reacting to your opponent without constantly being slowed down by that. Very quickly, we decided Dota was a good fit for this.
So there's been a trend in online gaming recently to push towards matching against the world, matching against people that you don't know. They're out there in the world somewhere. So we've been thinking about this a lot, and we've really moved in this direction of, like, what made card games fun in the old days was and even today, is to play with your friends. So when we think about how people will play Artifact, we're trying to think in terms of how do we create a social environment or enable existing social environments. Like if there are Ars Technica fans who had a club together, they would be able to take that into the game and play with each other. So we've moved a long way away from the single massive ladder that everyone gets dumped into, to thinking about this much smaller, more social-driven experience, or set of smaller experiences. So our thinking about game modes and ways to play is moving in that direction.
Dota 2, it's a broad fantasy flavor, and there wasn't a lot of constraint as to what we could add to the universe. Where you really run into problems is where when it's not broad, that narrows you, and also where the person who is in charge of that doesn't want you to add a bunch of things because it doesn't fit with the lore they've already got. Dota was very open to adding things, and at the same time it had enough tools there that you could populate something like the card game we were working on without any problem. There's certainly a certain modularity to design where when you've got all these different heroes you can drop in and you can drop in all these different pieces of crazy equipment and it all interacts in these crazy ways. Yeah, it's like a very flexible game operating system almost. As far as the 3 lanes, that didn't come about until we actually started talking about Dota, and it made sense because of the structure of Dota with the lanes. This is kind of like 3 separate matches and you have to win 2 out of 3. And that felt good to me also because a lot of card games, like Magic, the formal way to play is a match is often you have to win 2 out of 3 games. And so I thought if we could roll this together and make it so that one game is 2 out of 3, that would feel pretty satisfying and pretty epic. And I think it's getting into a strategic area which players have been hungry for and maybe haven't realized yet, that they're actually playing this sort of much grander strategy game than they've been able to play, and at the same time be turn-based. Like, I get very frustrated playing a game like StarCraft, which I love StarCraft, and I love MOBAs and all these games, but I get frustrated at the same time because it feels like you have to juggle at the same time. As doing the strategy game, and I've got to figure out my strategy at the same time. And so here we've got something much more focused on the strategy and is turn-based, so you've got some time to think about things, yet it doesn't drag. We've got a clock going, and so people are looking at that and finding that this is overwhelming, but it actually isn't overwhelming to them because they like it and they come back. What I would say the most exciting thing about watching people jump in, it hasn't led to changes, but it's sort of gotten me very excited, is this sort of constant feedback that this game really appeals to me. I want to play it again, but I don't think anybody else will play it because it's too complicated. And when you get that again and again, it feels really special because you're getting all these people saying this is something which appeals to me, but I'm not sure whether it's going to be broadly appealing. That's sort of some sort of secret sauce there.
To jest to, co oglądaliśmy, prawda? Tak mi się wydaje. Znaczy to... Tu jeszcze jest stream z telefonu. Dobranoc, Karolczy. O, StarCraft grą dla casuali nie jest.
I'll try to go interview some of the people waiting in the crowd. Okay guys, we're back live. There's currently a break. Nobody's playing, so it's still just the community around. I'm gonna try and do a few interviews from the crowd, okay?
But if you're here, which you're not, you get a beta game. Sorry.
I really like the animation. Impression, like...
To be like...
Dota Universe, how much do you play Dota?
I play a lot of...
Dobra, myślę, że to sobie darujemy, bo nie chce mi się oglądać czegoś takiego. PAX West Artifact Content. Artifaction GG. BTS Artifact. Videos. Full match from ENG. Ars Technica. How Valve plans to keep Artifact cost manageable from IGN.
We wtorki w KFC masz 5 skrzydełek Hot Wings za każde 5 zł.
Hi everyone, I'm Miranda Sanchez, joined by Tom Marks. Hello. And if we're together...
Co, oni mówią tutaj coś sensownego? How to play by ENG.
Valve's newest game is almost here, and while people are almost certainly already rushing to the comments of this video to type out Hearthstone clone in all caps, Artifact is actually one of the most unique digital card games I've played. It's also one of the most complex, and while we have a full uncut match that you can go watch right now, it would probably be helpful to break down what's actually going on. So, here's how to play Artifact. Artifact is a 1v1 card game where players build a deck of heroes, spells, and items, then battle across 3 unique boards called lanes. Each lane has a tower with 40 health and a pool of mana to spend on cards in that lane, starting at 3. You win by destroying 2 of your...
No dobra, nie będziemy tak oglądać. Fajnie jest ten film zrobiony, ale nie chce mi się drugi raz oglądać zasad. Artificer Guys.
PAX has just given us the biggest drop of information since Artifact was announced. You thought you knew the game? Well, you were wrong. Stay tuned to find out everything you need to know about Artifact. go over. This is going to be a gameplay we've been goes, and that's themes. Every single color has a thematic. Well,
no też nie wydaje mi się było coś nowego. Posłuchajmy tych jeszcze raz.
This free currency to then buy packs that way.
Gdzieś na tym skończyliśmy.
They're your own, and that's kind of, you can't trade them, you can't sell them, you can't do anything. And Artifact is not doing that. Artifact is doing the physical card game model. You have to buy the game for $20, but then you get 2 starter decks and 10 packs. Packs after that are always going to be $2, but then you have the Steam marketplace. You can sell cards, you can trade cards with your friends, you can buy any cards you want, and so it gives it more of a physical card game feel, but that also means you can't get anything for free. You have to be putting money into this system.
Yeah, which honestly I think is fair, because like if you really don't ever want to buy a card pack after buying the initial game, you could just go to the marketplace and say like, well, I want these specific cards. I don't want to risk the chance. Just get them as you need them.
Yep.
And then go that way. And I think that's a unique opportunity, right? Because you don't have that with other games.
Yeah, and they're doing some things with rarities too that kind of help mitigate this a little bit. There are only 3 types of rarities in the game: common, uncommon, and rare. And there's 1 rare in every.
Mam dziwne wrażenie, że trochę za głośna jest ta muzyka.
One of the rarest cards in every card pack, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, so you have at least some sort of value to every card pack. Of course, you're gonna have some value, but you know you're gonna get at least a rare card,
right?
Which is very good. And then so let's talk a little bit about the marketplace itself. So I think the worry is like, you look at Dota or you look at CSGO and you look at how certain items get to like $1,000. So how is that not going to happen in Artifact?
Right, and even in Magic the Gathering, you have cards that go for hundreds of dollars. I asked Valve specifically about this. I asked lead designer Richard Garfield, who was the creator of Magic the Gathering, specifically about this. It's something very, very on their mind, and it's something they are working actively to avoid, which I was very glad to hear. They are like steadfast in making sure that this is an affordable card game, that decks cost a manageable amount on the marketplace. I asked how much manageable meant, and they weren't giving me a specific number in that regard. But I said, what if there's a card that is like really crucial to a deck and it's $100 on the marketplace? And they straight out said, with no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that cannot happen. Whether that means that there is a hard cap or things like the rarities being cards being a little bit more accessible, just kind of limiting the prices, we don't fully know yet. So they told me they can do things like reprinting a card. So if you reprint a card, you get those same effects, but this like collector's version becomes the expensive thing, and then you don't have to worry about that collector's version in the pool of cards you're actually playing with. You can also they can limit it. Like there are certain things like the minimum buy price for the marketplace is 3 cents. They said that's a technical limitation of the Steam marketplace. But that means that they said you can buy pretty much every common card in the game for a couple bucks. Which is like, I don't even have all of the common Hearthstone cards, right? Like, that's not a thing. It seems so much more approachable to me to be like, oh yeah, I just gotta spend a couple bucks and I got all the common cards in the game, than I have to grind daily quests for gold every day. That's what they want to avoid, is the grind. And I think that they're in a position to do it with what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think I've done enough of that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, and then don't want to.
Right.
So I think that's exciting, and I know they've also reiterated that they want to make sure that these cards that you're building now will be viable in years. Like, it's not going to be about constantly buying new cards as they release new sets to stay in the meta, right? And so that's really important. And another cool thing that we kind of briefly touched on was that you can borrow a deck from somebody.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's something they're working on right now, is this idea of sharing decks. They kept emphasizing, Valve kept emphasizing to me this idea of, like, they wanted to get back to like playing card games with your friends, because when you played Magic, you never, and maybe this is just my experience, not many people go and play Magic tournaments, right? People are usually just playing Magic in like, oh, I built this deck, you want to try it out, let's fight. So they're trying to enable that, and part of that is deck sharing. If you build a deck and your friend doesn't have that deck, you can just give them the deck temporarily, play against each other, and then they give you the deck back, and you've played without having to put in this huge investment.
Yeah, and that's not really something you see in the digital space for card games.
No.
So I'm very excited about all those new announcements, and you know, having that like regular card game pricing for everything and not having some free currency, I think is a little bit more.
Ta strona tak wygląda?
Having that standard ease of access to trade and to sell your cards, like I was never able to like sell my Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Kurwa, to ogromny ten baner.
Pictures, no dobra. Zobaczmy sobie jeszcze te obrazki. Omni Knight. A Green Hero with Alice. Co? Fajne piny. Lajkuję. House of Cunning. House of Bold. Okay. Sniper. O kuwa, deal 10 piercing damage to a unit in any lane. To jest jego umiejętność chyba, czarnie, a to jest umiejętność. No dobra, kart ocen nie będę, bo nie grałem, więc nie wiem co jest dobre, co złe. No co to ma dwie momenty? Dobra. Myślę, że nie ma co dłużej siedzieć nad tym. To sobie zapiszę do ulubionych. Może tu jutro będzie coś ciekawego. Myślę, że już nie ma co dłużej nad tym siedzieć. Wygląda fajnie. Drzewo Topola nie możesz się mylić, no jak jeżeli ci się nie podoba, to ci się nie podoba. Nie? To przecież nie musi się każda gra wszystkim podobać. Tak myślę, że tak to działa. Że jak tam, nie wiem, Fortnite zbiera dużo graczy i tak dalej, no to nie znaczy, że musi się każdemu podobać. No jeżeli się tobie nie podoba artefakt, no to nie widzę w tym nic dziwnego. W każdym razie podsumuję sobie to na szybko. Jestem zajarany bardziej niż byłem. Podoba mi się. Chcę w to pograć. Wygląda fajnie i może to z tego wyjdzie. Dalej wątpię i wątpić będę do wyjścia i prawdopodobnie przez miesiąc później, a później już powiem, że wiedziałem, że ta gra w Polsce się wybije, jakkolwiek, bo mimo wszystko no nie nadaje się na polski rynek, więc a ja w ogóle nie czuję hype'u. To co lubi. Więc pewnie grom numer 1 na streamie nie zostanie, aczkolwiek z chęcią sobie pogram przez ten jakiś tam czas na początku. Zagram, by sprawdzić, nie będę oceniał po jakichś 20 minutach gameplaya. Jasne. Wygląd gry jest zbyt trudny, żeby przyciągnął graczy na stream. To człowiek to opinia. Nie będę każdej opinii analizował. Mi się podoba, zobaczymy. Podobno beta ma być w październiku. Więc może uda się dostęp do bety wyrwać i pograć coś w październiku. A jak nie, to pogramy w listopadzie, jak wyjdzie. I to chyba tyle. Myślę, że póki co temat możemy zamknąć. Bo nie ma już o czym gadać. Trzeba jeszcze poczekać na informacje o ekonomii. To też, czy betę można będzie streamować? Nie wiadomo. Znaczy nie wiem w sumie. Trzeba poczekać na informacje o ekonomii, bo to też jest istotne. A do tego czasu myślę, że nie ma co gdybać.